We know how hard it can be to get better, which is why for 60 years, we've been getting better at working with our pharma and Nutri partners to make people better, from fighting a headache to beating cancer. We're there. In fact, wherever in the world there's a medicine cabinet, you'll almost certainly find ACG somewhere inside it. So let's do this. Let's get better.
Hello and a very warm welcome to you on this very fine Tuesday. I am Mohammad Nadir, your host for today. In this interesting and fact-filled webinar, streaming live on the World Wide Web. I'm 100% sure you are more excited than I am to meet and interact with our esteemed speaker for today and learn so much about the world of tableting. Please feel free to add your questions in the Q&A box down there next to the chat box. Remember to actively engage in all the polls through the webinar, and most importantly, learn and have fun. It is my privilege to introduce the speaker of today's webinar on Beyond the Basics of Tablet Compression. Mr. Ajit Kanetkar is a master's in pharmaceuticals from the University Department of Pharmaceutical Scientists in Nagpur. He has over 40 years of experience, including 20 years in pharma manufacturing. His experience spans all dosage forms, especially sterile products and oral solid dosage forms. He has worked in renowned pharma companies like Workhard, Cipla, and even SM Pharma in Malaysia. In his 18 years with ACG, he has worked extensively on introducing fluid bed processing technology across the world, and today consults the international team of R&D scientists and engineers at ACG on tablet manufacturing technologies, and of course is an international speaker of high repute. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Ajit Kanetkar. Sir, over to you. I would request the host begin the sharing. A very good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon. She had called me, I don't know why. Sonia.
You can begin the presentation, sir.
Who is that?
You can begin the presentation. The audience is waiting.
Okay. Can we start, Nadir?
Please, sir, yes.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. As I'm not sure which part of the world you are in joining, but we welcome participants from all parts of the world. So welcome to you on this session of tablet compression beyond basics. So I think most of you must have done tablet compression or familiar with it. So now the very first thing is why basic? Okay, I was about to add earlier, not included this in the slide. I thought I will tell verbally. But why the title Beyond Basics? Because we strongly believe that as a professional, we should not work in watertight compartments. Okay. So we should be aware of regulatory changes, developments in technologies, changing market needs, product life cycle management, business opportunities. So beyond basics means what are the developments happening? We need to know on the technology front, on the formulations, on the market needs. So this is why the title is Beyond Basics. Let us begin with the end first. Why do we do what we do? Quality target product profile is a term all of us are familiar with. This is an ICH guideline upheld by all regulatory agencies over the world, US FDA, EU, India, everywhere. So the end objective, unless you know what is your end objective, how can you set the path towards achieving it? So you should know what is the end objective, and only then you can assign what are the critical material attributes, process parameters, and quality attributes. Sorry. Tablet dosage forms is a continually evolving dosage form. One of the oldest dosage form occupying about, along with capsules, together they occupy about 70% share of all dosage forms. The reasons are simple. Considerable ease of manufacturing, it is cost effective, and it meets variety of therapeutic uh, needs, therapeutic categories for a variety of molecules. Most important, the ease of administration, cost effective, and ease of manufacturing. In this session, we will look at the following contents. What are the variety of applications that our industry has achieved till date? Then what are the development in technologies? What to look for in tablet compression? What are the basic powder properties and QBD? How is it linked to QBD? And then what is the future? Developments in processing technology and the future. So I will run through the list because you are familiar with this, but it was just a recap on where we are today with respect to tablet dosage forms. Is a regular compressed tablet, uncoated, film coated, sugar coated, but all these are within the segment of immediate release. Entry coated, extended release, sustained release, OROS tablets, which is osmotic release tablets. Then effervescent tablets, tablets with MUPS, multi-unit particulate systems, buccal or mouth dissolved tablets. Incidentally, recently a lot of therapeutic categories are being tried on mouth dissolved. This is only to increase the onset of action, the fast onset of action. Then sublingual tablets is another area which is growing again. It's not that this format is new, but it is like repurposing. That you try to use some platform which is known to you for a different molecule. Floating tablets, which are gastric floating tablets, chewable tablets, vaginal tablets, multi-layered tablets, that is bilayer, trilayer. Now we also have these on the horizon, which have already made an entry, which is 3D printing. 3D printing is still evolving. It is a new science, it is evolving, and there are a couple of questions which are, nagging the minds of everyone, every segment in the industry. One, of course, there's a benefit that you can have patient-centric, specific dosage to meet a specific need. You can distribute it. You need not have a central manufacturing base. You can have it located where it is to be consumed. But now, the two most important questions is if you deregulate or decentralize the manufacturing, how will be the control? Both from the organization within as well as by the regulatory agencies. And when it is centralized, the manufacturing, what would be the regulatory aspects that are binding on it? how does regulatory agencies keep a control on multiple sites that make the same product of the same organization? But yes, one product has been launched, which is Pritan. It is for epilepsy, made by 3D printing. This is the first product till date, the only product till date which has been approved by USFDA. Second is Abilify MySite in digital pills. This is for psychological depression, schizophrenia. It indicates there's a small marker which sends a signal that the patient has taken the medicine. It informs the physician as well as nearby family members that yes, now the patient has taken his medicine. And then POTRAS, which is an acronym for paradoxical overdose resistant activating system. So this is to prevent intentional or unintentional abuse of the drug or overdose. Okay, and it provides deterrence. Typical example is this opioid analgesic, which is oxycodone hydrochloride. So it may be given in a big dose, but the release is very much controlled. This is the only first patented product under this category. Parallelly, we have seen growth of excipients in the last 20-30 years, and consistently it has grown from 6 to 8%, indicating that tablet dosage forms are prospering, growing. Now let us look at concurrent development in technologies. Machines are getting smarter. This is just to convey along with applications how on the technology front the equipments are also getting smarter, giving more benefits to do routine jobs but in a more efficient and precise manner. Like a high share mixer, it's also available. It is a PC based control system. Now almost all machines are PC based control systems available in 2 bar or 12 bar. That is, if you have to comply with ATEX guidelines for any explosive material, you can easily process it in a 12 bar configuration. Data compilation. So you can see this is a fluid bed processor for granulations, for particle coating. So this too is a smart machine. Tableting machine will come to in detail in the next segment. But the tableting machines nowadays are getting smarter and smarter, giving much more benefits than the earlier version of the tableting machines, making your life bit easier to face audits, to make regulatory compliances, at the same time achieving efficiency, quality with consistency. Tablet coating also, unique airflow patterns, more and more modified unique airflow patterns are being given. There's a poll pop-up. I'll take a pause in my session. So this is a request to the participants. Nadir, please take over.
Well, it's a very routine question, but it will be interesting to hear from you, the audience, as to and of course, since we have an international audience here, to understand, do you routinely check all parameters before running a batch in tablet compression? So please answer the poll as we go along this presentation. Back to you, sir. We have a lot of answers coming in and very interesting. So we will, of course, give the results at the end of the presentation. So you can now continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Nadir. Thanks to all the participants for actively participating in this poll. So we will move with the next. So even coaters are getting more and more efficient, more and more precise. So you can have entry coating of tablets, sustained release tablets, sugar coating in a much more refined and precise manner. So let us come to tablet compression because this session is on tablet compression. So we will look a little more into these aspects. Now, being a pharma guy myself, I know as a pharma person what are the needs But in case there is a nitty-gritty in a deep engineering question, we will take that question and perhaps revert to you later with the answer, suitable answer, if it is a deep down engineering related question. Else, anything related with the pharma or powders, you're most welcome. So, what are the things that one should look for when you look at tablet compression? How is the scalability from half kilo, 1 kilo batch or 5 kilo batch to 500 kilo batch, 100 kilo batch, 500 kilo batch? There's always a scale up factor 1 to 10 to 100, which the regulatory agencies ask for. If your R&D batch size is 1 kilo, your scale up batch should be 10 kilo, and your commercial batch should be minimum 100 kilo. Then another factor which adds is scale up and scale out. Now this is scale up. Scale out is once you reach the level of 50 or 100 kilo, going over to 200 kilo or 300 kilo should not take much efforts. So how is the scalability? How to minimize losses, lowering changeover time, breakdown frequency, how to lower it, maximum flexibility. We always want that maximum flexibility and ease of operation. So somewhere we have to strike a balance on what the need is. Audit friendliness is a must for all machines nowadays. Audit friendliness and how it helps in achieving compliance to regulatory directives. Then later on, you have to think of if you want to scale up, is it tough? It is not tough if you do it scientifically and in an organized manner. I recall the days when I started my career. Maybe many of you, or maybe all of you, must have done this. You know, how to check whether the granulation is good. So, take the granules, a little bit of them in your hand, get a feel of it. It's something that I cannot describe, but your hand has developed some, sensory senses by which you can assess whether the granules will make a good tablet or not. This is not science, though this might be a foolproof. In 90% of the cases, this is not science. But yes, at one point of time, it has helped. It will help, but it is not a GMP method, and it is certainly not, compliance to any regulatory guidelines. So now you have to do it in a scientific and organized manner, whether you scale up, whether the granules will be as good in 1 kilo batch as in a 100 kilo batch. Most important thing, I mean, the slide you can see, the information you can see, but I will just talk outside this slide. Apart from what is written on the slide, roller dimension, feeder dimension, tooling design, machine RPM, the principal thing is, the flow properties. The machine, the powder, what we have developed in the R&D scale, the powder, if it has an X amount of flow, it should have the same X amount of flow in a 50 kilo batch, in a bigger machine, and whether it is 50,000 output machine, 1 lakh output machine per hour, or 1 million output machine per day. The flow should be uniform, the consistency should be uniform, the uniformity should be uniform. There should not be segregation. Even if there is segregation, it should be within plus minus 3% or 5% limit so that your batch does not fail. So this is something you look for. Automated weight control. This is a dream for any guy on the shop floor. Upper limit, lower limit, mean weight. If it can happen automatically, nothing like it. There are machines available in the market which can do this. In process rectification, detection if there's any problem, alarm if there is any problem, and then a report. Tablet compression on vacuum systems, vacuum suction systems for the upper punch, for the diatable, for the lower punch. Now, most important thing in this, the vacuum has to be optimized. Else, in your blend, there will be something like differential bulk density. There will be particles of differential bulk density. It is possible that your main granules, 80% or so, would be of placebo materials only, like excipients, like starch or MCC or lactose, and then you may have added the API in the blending stage for some products. Or in other products, there might be some fines or lubricants you have added, which could be fines. The vacuum system should not suck away these components of your formulation. Okay, it should only be help to clear the dye table, nothing else, or the punch to make it free. It should not lead to segregation or loss of vital components of your formulation like the API or the lubricants or any material which is fine in particles. Then modular design, plug and play philosophy, of course, it's applicable to all machines. Easy changeover of turret, as you can see in the accompanying picture here on the slide. Feeder height adjustment is important. If it is digitally adjusted, excellent. More and more, the machines, when we say smart machines, is transfer of responsibility and settings from human to the machine. Because always the chance of error, the margin of error among humans is likely to be more than on the machines unless the machine has a breakdown. Then minimum requirement of special tools, as much as possible you should have press fit components. Lubrication as automated as possible, automated sampling and punch defect detection, operational checklist. Then additional features one would look for is inbuilt preventive maintenance programs, inbuilt calibration schedules for load cells, guidance startup videos, manuals in IPC, easily available to the operator, not kept in files in the cabin of a manager, but available to the person who is doing the job. Easy access to engineering zone and complete isolation of engineering and production zones, that is GMP and non-GMP area within that machine. So these are additional gravity feeder. Now this is another important segment, feeding and the feeder frame. The design is very critical to various kinds of formulation only to prevent segregation. I mean, if your, let's say 200 milligram tablet contains an API which is 2 milligram. So in some tablets you might have maybe 20 milligram, in some tablets you may have none. That should not happen. It should be consistent, uniform in content. So the feeder and the feed frame both have a vital function to prevent segregation. And of course, the regulatory guidelines requirements, 21 CFR compliant, CE certified, alarm reports, batch analysis, everything. So, in short, what you're looking for in smart machines is it takes away a lot of things that uh, you have been dependent on human beings for long. Human beings can make mistakes. Machines should not make mistakes. And it makes so you can focus on the productive part of your work, and the machine can take care of precise operations in a diligent manner, because machines don't get bored with monotonous jobs, repeat jobs. Human beings can. So make the machines do as much as routine jobs in a diligent manner so that it gives you better efficiency, quality, and helps in meeting regulatory compliances. So now, having covered some part of the machines, we will look at powders. Whenever we think of solid dosage forms, there are three main segments of variables: machine design and setting, powder properties, and climate conditions. That is the temperature and humidity in the room. Though I have mentioned humidity as RH, preferably it should be in the form of absolute moisture content, not as relative humidity, because relative humidity is a direct function of temperature. As you elevate the temperature, the RH comes down, though the total absolute moisture content remains the same. Now, among these three, machine design and settings, we have set, we know what are the features required in the machine, we just saw. Those are the minimum, there might be more features available. So machine is one thing. Climate conditions is at the control of the plant level. And now we'll look at powder properties. Now, despite all technological advances in application to tablet dosage forms, powder characterization, proper characterization of powders, granules, and blends is extremely important. This cannot be compromised. It was necessity 5 years back, 10 years back, 50 years back, 100 years back, and it will be relevant 10 years from now and 100 years from now. So this will not, you can't wish it away. A control on a characterization, proper characterization of powders and granules, and then diligently monitoring whether you meet those whatever guidelines you have set for that product, whether you comply with them or not. Lot of your problems on the tableting machine will be solved with this. So powders are usually a mixture of dry particles, entrapped air, and moisture content. So definitely, it requires a number of tests to provide to characterize what a powder is. This is just an overview. I'm sure all of you are aware of this. If it's a small tablet, let's say 7 mm or 8 mm, usually you try to have more of smaller granules than bigger granules. If there are bigger granules, more than let's say passing through 20 mesh or 10 mesh, then you will have weight variation because the die cavity will be small for a field weight of 100 milligram or 75 milligram. And if a big granule enters that space, it will lead to weight variation. For a bigger tablet, you need bigger granules, at least some part of it, maybe 10%, 20%, because it has to provide the strength for tablet hardness and reduce friability. So this is a basic rule which I'm just summarizing, repeating, reinforcing in a way. And when you look at the total variables, there's a moisture content. Moisture content for a hydrophobic would be very less. Moisture content for a high. Okay. So there's another poll question, and I hand over to Nadir and the participants to deal with this question. Over to you, Nadir.
I think this is a very interesting question, sir. How familiar that the audience is from the QBD perspective. So the topic for today is going beyond the basics of tablet compression, and definitely one of the key topics is QBD. It's good to understand the familiarity level of all the participants. Are they very familiar but not implemented it yet? Or they're not sure about the application or not familiar with QBD, or if it's not applicable to you. So this will be very interesting. So go ahead and respond to the poll right away, and we will continue in Sir's presentation and see how this choice of yours affects your understanding. So go ahead and take the poll, while Sir, I hand this back to you to continue the presentation.
Is it done, Nadir?
Yes.
Okay, I'll continue with my session. Thank you, participants. Thank you, Nadir. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, just the results have just come in, and it's very amazing that the audience is fairly familiar with QBD. They may or may not have implemented it, but it's in fact a staggering 80% of the audience is familiar with quality by design. So this is indeed, sir, a beyond basics presentation. because now I'm sure you will be able to delve deeper into this. So over to you,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Nadir. Thank you, participants. There is a slide on one single slide on QBD definition, which will come to it later. Okay. So comprehensively, all the variables are listed here. Like moisture content. See, this diagrammatically, what does it represent? These are four batches of one product, hypothetically. A, B, C, D are the four batches. The product is the same. These are the particle size distribution, C analysis. Okay. On the left hand side are the bigger particles, on the right hand side are the smaller particles or fines. Now, for this product, depending on the compression weight and the nature of the API or general formulation, whether it is hydrophobic or hygroscopic, you have to keep the moisture content. Then depending on the bulk density, it will make impact on flow properties or how should it be processed, whether they have any element of static charges, the temperature and RH conditions required, the machine and settings, and the human factor. Human factor, we will leave it aside because this is always the biggest variable among all the variables. Okay. So, and so far, I believe, with the greatest respects to all human beings, including myself, unfortunately, there is no science on how to deal with different human emotions. So, but definitely, yes, we can attend the formulation part, the machine part in a very scientific and organized manner. Once again, all these variables lead to the final quality target product profile. So one has to keep this in mind while dealing with powders and any dosage form for that matter, but especially powders. So powder variables can be summarized as these, compiled. Earlier days, we were always looking at sieve analysis, bulk density, moisture content, but now there is much more to it than what we focused on. But I think these studies should be made during the phase of formulation development, not in the regular commercial manufacturing phase. But yes, the commercial manufacturing, regular batch manufacturing people in the shop floor should be aware of what are the total number of variables possible in a powder, like shape, surface texture, surface area, cohesivity, and adhesivity. Cohesivity is sticking between particle and particle of the granule. Adhesivity is sticking out the blend particle with any other surface like machine. Then elasticity, plasticity, okay, porosity, potential charge for static charges, hardness, friability of the granule, hygroscopicity, amorphous content. Now, what is this amorphous content? Usually, crystalline materials are difficult to handle than amorphous. If it has a more amorphous content, the compressibility is better. Now, apart from the regular instrument that we are familiar with, this to test all these, shear strength, aeration, permeability, consolidation test, compressibility, they make use of powder rheometers, which are very expensive, but the knowledge is there, information is there. I have seen these rheometers in some very good companies, but it is a very, very expensive instrument. But there are lab services available where during the development phase, the company can arrange to send a sample to these labs and have it tested for all these tests, like aeration. It means whether the powder can fluidize properly. Permeability. This is an indication of capping and lamination. So each one of these tests may give an indication to something. Okay, like shear strength. This indicates the wall friction. Now this is important in tablet compression because the wall friction is critical during punching. But on the shop floor level, Now, this is at the R&D level, but everyone should be aware of these properties. And this is at the shop floor level, the golden basic three tests which anybody can do, everyone must do, and everyone must do it for every batch, every product before they start the batch. I do not know how many, how much of this is religiously followed, but on the basis of my experience, I strongly recommend that these three tests should be done for every batch, every product, every day, every evening, every shift, every month, every week of the year, forever. Because powders have lot more variables, and you may never know which variable is playing a role. So it is better to keep a check on this moisture content, bulk density, and sieve analysis. The next is powder variables. Now, all these tests help in understanding general powder behavior, flow properties. Most important, how will it behave in the hopper? Helps in the hopper design. Helps in understanding or predicting friction between punch and die wall. Now, it is necessary to create a library of observations over a few batches of all these powder properties. Create a library and then find the golden tunnel batch. You must have heard this term. It is used very frequently for the past few years, that when it comes to powders, you always have some variable that you may not be familiar with, or its impact, the amount of impact may not be familiar. You may not be knowing the impact of it, but it will be playing a role. So if you run 100 batches of a particular product, maybe 60-70% of them are excellent, absolutely. Maybe another 20-25% are okay, good, and maybe 2 or 3% might be on the borderline or with some failures. Now, these batches, which are excellent, you need to compile all information. You need to study, investigate, and compile all information related to these batches, because then only you can strive to achieve the conditions which are necessary to make good batches. This is called the golden tunnel. Now, what other properties may contribute to the behavior of granules apart from powder properties? Like processing methods, granulation, whether it is dry granulation or wet granulation. As a thumb rule, wet granulation is always preferred over dry granulation because it provides a better compressibility. Dry granulation can provide a better compressibility if you have the adequate excipients in it, like MCC or mostly MCC and some amount of starch. But dry granulation is required for some APIs that are not stable in wet conditions. Then, among wet granulations, which is the equipment that has been used, whether it is high shear mixer or a fluid bed processor or any other. A fluid bed processor will give excellent uniformity, a good compressibility, but the density of these granules will be slightly, maybe zero point 0.5 lesser than 0.05, lesser than those prepared on a high shear mixer. But then high shear mixer may have good flow properties, higher bulk density, but then it may have an effect on dissolution and drug release profile. Fluid bed processor, though lesser in bulk density, may have better drug release profile, but this will change from product to product. You may have to see that for some products a fluid bed is good, for some products high shear mixer is good. But accordingly, the granules will behave differently. Then wet granulation, whether it is aqueous or solvent. Aqueous is always preferred among wet granulation because it provides better compressibility, some amount of moisture, which is necessary for good compressibility. Solvents like IPA or alcohol or any other typically have a dehydrating effect on the powder mass and may have compressibility issues or something like capping or splitting of the tablet or something or poor hardness. But then you have to focus on the suitable excipients which need to be incorporated because, as I said earlier, some APIs may not be stable in aqueous based systems. So you have to use solvents, but then you can compensate for the dehydrating effect of the solvent by adding suitable excipient to it so that it provides some moisture inside. Then, of course, climate conditions, temperature, and humidity, and then handling and storage, of course. Now, before I explain this, let me share something from my career. Like we were discussing all these variables, especially these. My career of last 39, 40 years have been more or less, 40% has been in sterile products, 60% in solid dosage forms. My beginning was maybe 80% of sterile products and maybe 15-20% in other dosage forms. So what I learned while working in sterile products is discipline. And there are a lot of parallel activities happening which you have to monitor. It was like sitting in an airport control tower, monitoring the movement of all aircraft and ensuring there is no mid-air collision or collision on the runway. And you have to ensure smooth landing and takeoff for each one of them. When it comes to solid dosage forms, even if you have produced a batch, maybe 60, 100, 500 batches of the same product, even 1,000 batches of the same product, suddenly one day you might end up having, a borderline case or some problem or some issue with that batch, and you never understand why. So, solid dosage forms will continue to be intriguing but not difficult. Yes, with more and more science creeping in, with more and more technology coming in, with more and more regulatory guidelines coming in, like PAT, process analytical techniques, and QBD principles, and all that, it will make the investigations more scientific and more organized. So, coming to QBD, this is the basic definition of QBD as per US FDA guidelines, even mentioned by ICH. You should have knowledge of each process because the process, you are the process owner for any product, for any process, whether it is granulation process, whether it is purchasing process, whether it is warehousing process, whether it is any process in the chain of that product life cycle. You should know each part of the process thoroughly well. Then you will understand the variables involved, the variables which affect the quality of that product. Then you understand the source, the magnitude, and the impact of those variables. And then all you have to do is monitor and control those variables so that they continue to be there within acceptable limits so you can have consistency on your quality. Life without variables is impossible. There will always be variables in any part, in any feature, in any segment, whether it is professional working or whether it is personal life. There will be variables, but you must know, have an understanding of the variables and then control those variables. This, in simple terms, is quality by design. So coming back to the same slide which I showed in the beginning, so eventually you have to move towards quality target product profile. This is the end objective of any product. So accordingly, whatever helps you in achieving QTPP, then you have to see what should be the raw material attributes, what should be the critical quality attributes during processing, what should be the critical process parameters during processing, and then the risk assessment. So it, in the end, it is all about knowing your process and then characterization of your material, of your product, of your process, of your equipments. This is QBD. Now,
Well, sir, that was very interesting part about QBD, and one curiosity that I'm sure you will have going forward with regards to your presentation is what is the next poll question, and it's open for all the participants to answer now. So, participants, please answer the poll question. Do you typically investigate and test your best batches before your production? So, you can always you can answer any of the five options, and let's wait and see what does the audience have to say. So, of course, it's been very insightful, sir, about QBD and how parameters are, to be controlled and affected. And I'm sure that the audience is finding this very interesting and is engaged. We have a very large audience today from across the world. And we're going to understand very soon whether they typically investigate their best batches before the production or do they don't ever do that. It's not required, of course. So it would be interesting to understand. Okay, we will have the results shortly. Wow, a staggering 83%, 82% say either often or always. So 80-20 rule, I think we have a large part of the audience that is fairly mature, has typically investigates the best batches. So this is interesting, sir. Don't you think so?
yes, definitely, because the slide deals with it. Okay. Now, a typical scene in any pharma company and any pharma plant is when there's a failure, everyone is in a serious mood, running around, investigating the batches. So, when we investigate the failures, we only learn which combination of variables can give you a bad batch. But when you investigate your best performances, best batches, this will give you an insight into the combination of variables that gives excellent quality, good batches. So this is the simple reason why you must, I cannot underline enough, underscore enough, okay, that investigating best results is very good. It can, a wealth of knowledge is waiting to be discovered and it will help you in finding the golden tunnel batch or batches. So now just a couple of more slides for before I close. So we get to hear from a lot of publications that new and new molecules are coming into the market where 30 to 40% have poor solubility, and people are exploring new methods of preparing this. Typically they're called as amorphous solid dispersions, and they are using spray drying, hot melt extrusion, freeze drying. Why I'm showing this slide? That in future, maybe the granules that you might have may not come from conventional granulation systems, but it may come from one of these processes. It may not happen tomorrow, it may not happen in a year's time, not in the next 2 years or 3 years, but it may start happening after 5 years, 3 years, or 5 years, and definitely after 10 years. But 5 to 10 years, we'll see some change in that. So today morning, as I was going through my mailers, I saw this, in one of the online pharma publications that I get in my mails. And the first two titles were Are the new molecules becoming more lipophilic? It means with poor solubility with or zero aqueous solubility, and they will provide problems of dissolution and drug release. Second was how do we increase oral bioavailability with such molecules of poor solubility, whether we use cryomilling, spray drying, controlled expansion, something like that, or hot melt extrusion. This is just today morning I received this in my mail, coincidentally. So I thought I will add this. It was not there in my earlier presentation, original presentation, but I added this a few minutes before we started this session. So what is the future? We'll see more high-speed automation lines, smarter machines, continuous manufacturing, and use of lot of robotics for repeated tasks and products requiring containment. Then data compilation with lot of focus on analytics. And yes, active partnerships with equipment and raw material suppliers. This is the age of outsourcing. If you engage your partners, business partners into product development,
So I'm sure Sir is going to be joining us shortly. There is a slight technical challenge. Um, so while we wait for him to come back online, I think this is a fantastic opportunity to go through the notes you have made on the presentation so far and see, are there any questions that you would want the expert who has been working on such dosage forms for the past 40 years in India and of course abroad as well. He is internationally known. Some of you already know him. So if there are any questions that you might have, anything that is currently in your production, in your day to day, you are facing any challenges with regards to tableting or tablet compression or granulation, this would be a great time to use this question and answer box and utilize his experience in tableting and granulation. And while we have him joining back, I'm sure we will be able to answer the questions as well. So please be sure to type in your questions and welcome back, sir. So
yeah, sorry about that. Some momentary glitch.
No problem, sir. You have a lot of friends of yours in the chat, and everybody's responding. So yes, please you can share your screen, sir, and then we can continue.
Yeah, just a moment. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Just a moment. I'll
Yes.
put it on. So this is the last slide. So repurposing is also there, as we have heard of aspirin. Earlier it was for headache and fever. Now it is more of for as a cardiac drug. Remdesivir and nintedanib suddenly they came up during COVID. Earlier they were used for some other purposes, and they thought it could help beat COVID or fibrous tissues in the lungs. And as awareness, access, and affordability increases, the volume, the requirement will go up. And of course, what we saw in the earlier phases, tablet being one of the most cost-effective, safe, dependable dosage forms, it is there for a long, long time to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
sir.
thanks to all the participants. And of course, I may or may not have met all the participants, but there are some participants I understand whom I have met earlier, whom I have known. But my thanks to all of them for joining this session, and thanks to our team here uh, at
On behalf
ACG.
of everybody, sir, I would like to thank you. In fact, it's been a very insightful conversation. And the reason I say it's a conversation is because we had a lot of interesting polls, a lot of interesting insights coming in from the audience. And of course, we have, audience coming in from Egypt and Bangladesh and Indonesia. We have, of course, Indian audience, as well as, some more African and European countries. So it's lovely to see everybody understanding and engaging from you. There are a lot of interesting questions, and with respect to the time, we have about 5 minutes left. So respecting your time, sir, I will ask about 2 or 3 questions. But I hope that I can write to you, and we can answer all these questions by email.
Yeah. Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay. So the first question is, what is the exact cause of black spots on tablets after aging? So this is a specific question about after aging. So if you can maybe shed some light on that.
I mean, black spots after aging.
Yeah.
After aging, there could be some definitely effect of atmospheric something on the tablets or internal reaction between two ingredients. Okay.
Okay.
So this could be the black spots. Definitely, if the black spots were absent earlier and have come up later, it is either due to some degradation of one of the components or some reactivity or due to exposure to atmospheric oxygen or moisture or something.
Very interesting. So, speaking about that, so I mean, and the second question is reason for getting brown spots on tablets, but during stability. So, while they're doing stability trials, if you're getting brown spots, what could be the root cause? And, if you can maybe provide some ideas on how to tackle them, that would be, I'm sure, very useful for the audience.
If there are brown spots during stability studies and it indicates degradation of the API, then certainly the formulation is not good enough. Some tweaking of the formulation is required. I believe you mentioned stability studies. So
Yes.
during stability studies, everything should remain good because it is like an accelerated shelf life of the product. And especially the API should not degrade, or if that brown spot or whatever colored spot is due to some degradation of any other component other than the API, then also it needs to be studied whether it is going to lead to any untoward reaction if the patient takes it in. And as far as API is concerned, it certainly should not have any degradation beyond limits. Because during stability studies, everything should be in good condition as the first day of manufacturing.
Okay. So one question coming in from Mohammed is, what are the factors for affecting dissolution studies, especially for pioglitazone tablets? So I think he's having a very specific question. Pioglitazone.
I think that we will revert to him specifically.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a very specific question, so it makes sense. So a little question about the role of sieving a granule prior to the compression step and action of lubricating in a QBD. So
See, granules after sieving of granules after granulation is done or after drying is done is okay. If you want to achieve particle size distribution between what you have planned, what you have set during formulation development. Okay. And so in that case, sieving is okay for granules after drying to meet your particle size because there could be some oversized granules.
correct.
So you have to bring them down to your required granule size.
It's about
Definitely not,
finding that.
yeah, but definitely not after blending.
It's
Sieving
it's
after blending is certainly out of the question.
correct because you're looking to achieve narrow particle size distribution as well as good assay and good
Yes.
uniformity in the assay. So of
See,
course,
for any product, these two things are most important. One is stability,
right.
okay, and the other is drug release profile. Whatever you have planned, whether it is immediate release, enteric, or sustained release, or whatever, the drug release is the target profile of the product and stability through the shelf life. These are the top most important things in any dosage form.
Right. One more very specific question on metformin coming in from Nirmalanthi Silva. So metformin is of course a very critical material to handle, and according to your knowledge, what is the suitable method? Roller compacting, wet granulation, or dry granulation? So
I do
I'll
not
take this
recommend.
answer because I mean it's a specific question on metformin, or since metformin is a fairly common substance.
In my experience, I have found that wet granulation is the most preferred option. Earlier, they always did granulation using solvents, but aqueous methods I have personally done an excellent, and the company for whom I have done this, okay, it is exporting granules, DC granules of metformin in container loads to Europe. So I would recommend rather than dry granulation, I would prefer wet granulation for metformin.
Absolutely. So
Okay,
the kind of
okay.
questions that are coming
And
in,
just let me say thanks, because the people that I see popping up are the people I have met,
yes,
like Roger
a lot of
Schwitz,
people seem to be familiar with you.
Roger Schwitz and Nirmalanti. Hello to you and thanks for joining the session.
So, sir, the questions that are coming in, honestly, I feel since I've spoken to you multiple times about these things, I know you can take an entire session on these, but we are completely out of time. In fact, we are overdue. So, I really appreciate your time, sir. And I hope that we can get back to everybody who's asked the questions in due time. For now, I would really like to appreciate, of course, the entire audience for tuning in. And please do come prepared for the next webinar next month. We will have a very interesting topic as well for you. But Mr. Ajit Kanetkar, it has been a privilege to host this webinar and learn so much in the process. So thank you so much, sir. Have a great day ahead, and we shall get back to you with the questions as soon as possible.
Yeah, thanks a lot to all of you, to all the participants, to my colleagues in ACG. Thanks a lot. It was a great session. Uh, Maybe I spoke a little more than I had planned and took more minutes than I had planned, but it was necessary in some cases to elaborate a little more on that concept as I was giving through my presentation. So thanks a lot again. Over to you, Nadir.
Thank you, sir.